Welcome to the Better Together podcast, where we look for ways we can work together to advance the gospel of Jesus Christ. Today, we have with us Brandon Baden. He's the pastor of New London Church in New London, Virginia. He was first a banker, worked bivocationally as a pastor and a banker for some time. I believe, Brandon, 14 years or so you've been associated with this church, but we'll get in that in a minute. But quite an interesting story, quite an interesting life of how God has worked with them at the New London Church. So thank you, Brandon, for joining us today, my friend.
Appreciate it, brother. Thanks for the opportunity.
So tell us, how did you end up at New London Church? And was New London Church like a mega church, as they say, when you got there?
Well, it wasn't a mega church when I came, and it's certainly not a mega church now. But the short story is, I came to college in Virginia. I grew up just outside of Lexington, Kentucky, and I met a really pretty girl from Bedford County. And so here we are. After college, we dated, got married, started working in secular jobs, and just loved the area and wanted to stick around here. So we were originally living in Roanoke at the time. And I came home one day from work and just said, I really feel like the Lord is calling us to move to Bedford. It just feels very strongly. And she said, well, I have felt the same as well, but didn't know how to talk to you about that. And so we, put our house on the market, sold our house, moved to Bedford, and it was in February 2008. And then the pastor of this church, who happened to be her grandfather, passed away in March that year. And they struggled for a few months without a pastor, and they knew that I had a call to preach, even though I didn't have Free Will Baptist background, and asked me to fill in. And so I did that for 2 years. They kind of quit looking for a pastor. We experienced a little bit of growth. And so now I've been here 12 years as full-time pastor.
Wow. So people talk about, how do you know God's will? Really, you were trying to do God's will. You had worked as a college pastor or worked with college students, right?
Yep, that's right.
You were studying, and you end up getting involved with this church here, and God's working in your life the whole time He's working this church's life, right?
Absolutely. The church had really dwindled to just a handful of people. When her grandfather took it over, he brought some family and friends and really gave the church new life, but it was new life with 15 or 20 people at most. But they loved the Lord, and when he passed away, they just opened the doors and gave me an opportunity and loved me and supported me in the very beginning.
So how in the world you had kind of like a Southern Baptist, Independent Baptist background? Free Will Baptists are a little bit different, aren't they? So how in the world did that come about, the whole Free Will Baptist angle?
That's right. The college I went to was a Presbyterian college, so I was pretty well versed with the Calvinist approach to things. And so there were a few men within the Free Will Baptist denomination that really just loved me and poured into me. Dr. Bruce Barnes, the promotional director for our state, is one of those men. I just saw how hard he worked. I saw how much he loved the Lord. And I knew I could go to him with honest questions, and he wouldn't judge me because I didn't have that background. And so he was instrumental to me. And also, as our church was growing, we brought college students in from several local colleges. And, they're great for questions. And that's always been a passion for Mandy and I. And in answering their questions, the Free Will Baptist doctrine just over and over again answered the theological questions in a more concise way than I had ever been experienced before.
So sometimes we as pastors and even as parents, we see these college students coming and all their questions. What you're saying is the questions were actually helpful. Helped you grow, and you're helping them grow as well in their faith and grow and learn more about doctrine as they're going forth and becoming what God would have them to be.
That's right. And credit to the people who were in the church at that time. They gave me space to figure it out and to support me. So I appreciate that.
Now you're still working at the bank and all that as we're going along, and it was a long time before you actually became the pastor, if we will.
That's right.
Had to be kind of difficult and stressful for you and Mandy.
It was hard, especially. So I was a bivocational pastor for 10 years, and my family was growing. We have 3 kids now. My portfolio at work, I was a commercial loan officer for a local bank. Portfolio was growing by leaps and bounds, and the church was picking up momentum. And I was just realizing, I can't continue to do all three of these things really, really well. Something has to go. And so you see where we are today. But it was stressful. It was hard. But I was determined early on, especially whenever I ever answered the call to preach, that I wanted to go wherever the Lord called me to go, regardless of salary or benefits package. If I'm called to preach, I'm called wherever God sends. And it just so happened to be this little church here in Central Virginia.
And that willingness to be bivocational helped them get on their feet, so to speak, didn't it? And
yeah, it did. A church of 15 people or so can't pay a full-time pastor and support his family. And so that was an integral part of our growth and giving this church the stability that it needed as we made money and could provide financially for the church as well.
And you didn't stay still. So we need to put that out there. You've got well, I guess that was March that you moved into the new church.
Yeah, we had our dedication service in March. We had a wonderful day. We had 260 people in the building. We baptized 11 people. It was just a fantastic event. A long time coming.
So that's right beside the old church, which you
That's
now
right.
use as like a fellowship building,
That's
I guess
correct.
you say.
Yeah.
So yes, you were bivocational, but it's not like you were sitting still. The church was growing, very active. And when did you all start with the whole building program?
Well, for many, many years, the church was still very small. And I didn't make very many changes at all. I wanted to try to earn the trust of the people who were there before me. And so we started implementing some changes little by little. It was, some people might not like this, but, every day it was a coat and tie from the pulpit. But as we attracted more younger families, the environment became a little less formal. Preaching didn't change. It's still expository preaching. But we made a few changes like that, and it drew more people in. And so our building, we were renting that old chapel for most of our life. We started occupying that building in about 1993. Give you a little history there.
Wow.
And we didn't buy it until 2016. And we continued to grow, and COVID was actually great for us because it forced us to go to 2 services. I never really liked that model because it really creates two churches under the same roof. I feel like, but it forced us to go to 2 services for a while, which gave us room for growth, and we were able to pick up additional families that way. But before COVID started, we had already talked about we need a new building. We need some classroom space, especially because we had a sanctuary, of small kitchen, and 2 nurseries because we had so many little kids. And so we wanted to build just something modest, and kind of plans evolved from there.
Yeah. And we need to point out you're only 10-minute drive from Liberty University.
That's right. We're eight miles down the road, down the major highway here from Liberty University and Liberty Mountain.
So I know, and I know many of our listeners know Danielle and Matt Mauser. So at some point, Danielle starts going over there to New London, doesn't she?
That's right. That's right. She found us when she came here to go to college. And Danielle Mauser she was just a breath of fresh air. Up till that point, you might laugh, but we had a little old lady playing piano, and I was leading hymns on Sunday morning, Sunday evening, and Wednesdays. And so Danielle came in and just really breathed new life into our worship. She had a heart and a gift for music, and a passion for sharing it with kids and with the church. And it was a great, God provided the right person at the right time for us, in just a wonderful way.
And then eventually she marries this guy named Matt. So
that's right.
Actually, before that, he starts going up to your church as well, and he gets involved, doesn't he?
He does. As their relationship progressed and they knew they wanted to get married, it really didn't seem like it was a question at all. He knew he wanted to be here and a part of a church that was doing something exciting. So I got to know him, mentor him a little bit, and we brought him on as associate pastor, and he fulfilled that role well for us. And then a little over a year and a half ago, they took a church in Columbus, Georgia, and we're thrilled to see what they're doing down there.
So you're sending people out as well.
Right. And just this past March, we ordained another man to be a church planter. And our intention is to send him out to an existing church or to plant one of our own in this local area.
So you've picked up some folks from the area colleges, and that's one of the things we're encouraging our listeners to think about. So you go to college, think about what church you're going to attend. And really what Danielle did, she contributed quite a bit to you, but you're also contributing, you're pouring into her life and the person who became her husband's life later as well, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. College students churches tend to approach them as a mixed bag because college students are messy, if I can put it that way. But the church should be a place for messy people. And what I have found with the college students, I love the questions. I love the enthusiasm and the energy. So many churches these days need some additional energy, and those college students help provide that for us.
That's great. And so you can definitely see that as part of the life of this church, and even your and probably Mandy's story. The college students helped with that, helped you by asking you questions, making you think about things like doctrine. Mm-hmm. And then they're actually ministering in the church. So it helps the church really get on its feet. It really is, it's what the Lord meant it to be.
Absolutely.
Well, this is very exciting, Brandon, and I encourage our folks, if you happen to be in the Lynchburg, Virginia area, it's the New London community, head over there to New London Church, see Brandon, see Mandy. If you leave something behind, they'll track you down and they'll send it to you. I've had that personal experience, so we appreciate that. But just a wonderful congregation, just a good group of people just trying to follow the Lord and influence their community. And so, Brandon, we thank you and Mandy and the whole crew over there at New London for the good work you guys are doing for the Lord.
I appreciate it. We're just trying to, make him known and get his name out there, and doing it with love and compassion, and people respond to that authenticity. Absolutely.
Well, thank you all for listening to us today. We want to encourage you to take this podcast, share it with someone that you think would benefit. If you're on Facebook or YouTube, Facebook, like it. YouTube, subscribe to the channel. Remember, everything we do working together for the Lord truly does make us better together. Thank you for being with us today.